every time I paint, every time I make a piece of sculpture, everything has to be discovered for the first time.
London. It's a city that will put you under its spell. I first visited here in 1986 at age 15, and the pixie dust has never shaken off. But don't follow a crowdsourced TripAdvisor list of 10 things to do here. London is a great ancient city, and it has shown time and again its constant state of adaptation and evolution. Just when you think you know it, something is remixed, challenging its touristy status quo. From wickedly good controversial public art, to historical pubs reimagined by women chefs, to a walking tasting tour of the only cheese market in the city, to the entrepreneurship of a traditional black cab, London is calling you. We strongly suggest you answer. Thanks to rail service, a day trip from London in any direction is a breeze. Head northeast to Aldeburgh Beach in Suffolk, and you'll observe one of 3 sculptures by the famed contemporary artist Maggi Hambling. When I first viewed her 2012 Wall of Water series of paintings, I fell madly in love with Maggie's bold, nonconformist, and dare I say punk aesthetic. The first artist in residence in 1980 at the National Gallery, Maggie's works are represented in all major British collections. She is also equally treasured and censured, especially for her public sculptures. I have loved Scallop for years, but always on a screen. This was my first time seeing the massive steel structure with the naked eye. And having Maggie herself there to talk about it and her career is nothing short of a dream come true.
I hear those voices that will not be drowned.
Yes, that's from Peter Grimes, his most famous opera.
Did you know the composer?
No.
You didn't?
No.
What was inspirational about him for this piece?
I remembered all the stuff had been in the papers about Aldeburgh not wanting any memorial to its greatest son. And I got very cross, maybe very angry. And so I thought, right, I'll do something myself. Mm-hmm. And so I began, and the shell just came to me because, you know, when you're a child, you put a shell to your ear and you can hear the sounds of the sea. And also it's a symbol of love and pilgrimage. Anyway, from the road, there it's just sort of standing, this rather large shell. And from this side you get the whole explosion of it. Because you see, I think that's what Britain did with, he got classical music by the neck and, you know, wrung its neck and produced his own voice from it, you know. And so it's supposed to be a sort of echo of what I feel about Britain's music. And I've lately had a couple of letters from old ladies who have said, would I mind if when they die their ashes are put on a rocket and sent off across the sea at Scallop. So I've written back and said, no, I wouldn't mind at all. And people have got married here and there have been funerals here and people come a lot to see it. And I think the people of Aldeburgh who are so against it in the first place, they of course would be very cross if it was taken away now, because I think they've finally realised they sell a lot of fish and chips and ice creams on the back of this, you know.
Scallop isn't the first sculpture that failed to meet sensible public or art world expectations. When A Conversation with Oscar Wilde was unveiled in 1998, a critic's review in The Independent got to the point. It's got to go. Thankfully, it didn't. A sculpture for Mary Wollstonecraft, commemorating the 18th century feminist writer, shook the public in 2020 when unveiled in North London. Maggie's testament to everywoman flew over the heads of most critics and viewers.
I think 12 artists were asked to submit an idea for a thing for Oscar Wilde, and it was very important to me that he wasn't sort of highfalutin on a pedestal, you know, looking camp or something, because he was very much a man of the people. And so the idea is, you know, you can sit on the sarcophagus and have a chat with him, and 3 times the cigarette has been removed.
Seen that.
And then with Mary Wollstonecraft, I mean, it was the feminists who objected to it.
Which is ironic.
I mean, don't they have bodies, feminists? I mean, heaven knows.
I thought the Mary Wollstonecraft made perfect sense. It was because it's not, you know, of.
Well, you know, Oscar Wilde said when the critics are divided, the artist is at one with himself, which I think is a pretty good thing. But one of the best things to come out of that was my friend, the writer, Paul Bailey. He always watches the Channel 4 news. And on that Tuesday, when it sort of hit the world, he rang me about 3 minutes past 8 and said, "Well," he said, "you have put the pussy among the pigeons this time." He said, "Never mind Scallop." And I was leaving a Waitrose supermarket in Saxmundham with my trolley full of stuff, and one of the cheery Suffolk women gave me a big grin and said, "Been making trouble again, I see." I mean, I don't set out to make trouble, I don't set out to be controversial, but it seems to happen. So that means it's got a bit of life to it, I suppose.
So back to that, you said that there were a dozen or so artists that submitted for the Oscar Wilde piece.
Yes, and it seemed to take a long while to sort of, and Ian McKellen was one of the judges, and the director of the National Portrait Gallery, and there were quite a lot of people, and Jeremy Isaacs, who started Channel 4, he was sort of leading the whole thing. And thank goodness they chose me, because Oscar had been such an important part of my life. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there was a lot of fuss, but there always seems to be a lot of fuss.
I thought it was a great choice, just in, Shakespearean trained actors, and to have that sort of reverence for what he stood for, and not having something that had to be polished and looked like a Confederate general. Forgive the American euphemism there. How much have you thought about, or not, in terms of like the digitalization of your artwork?
What happens is you go to somewhere and you just take a selfie in front of it. You don't look at the thing at all. You don't experience it. The great thing is just to prove that you've been there for a couple of seconds. So I've refused to have anything to do with computers my whole life.
I'm not going to ask her to take a selfie with me to prove that I was here with Maggi Hambling. Just saying it. Not going to do it. Not going to ask her. But you're right. I mean, I've been looking at this for years online. It's very different seeing it in a tangible place and seeing how others are reacting to it. The memorial pieces, Clive's stone, the dog peeing on it over there.
I know. It's made for everyone, dogs and all.
Maggie once said, "The sea is like time. You can do nothing about it. Death will come, the sea will come. It's a metaphor for life." Hambling is mainly known for her intricate paintings of land, seascapes, and abstract portraits. She released her latest series of paintings, The Night, in 2024.
What happened was, I was 14 at school, and there was an art exam. And I did nothing but flick paint at people and generally be a nuisance, because I was so in love with the biology mistress who was invigilating the exam. And then I saw the clock and it was 3:20, and I knew at 3:30 we had to hand in a painting, so I did one. And when the results came out 2 or 3 weeks later, I was top of art. And I thought, this is very peculiar, that apparently I'm good at something and I don't have to try. And so anyway, I spent until 2 o'clock in the morning trying to paint the night sky out of my bedroom window. And I took them into school, and they were all laid out on these tables. And all the other girls were laughing at them, and the art teacher came into the room. And I was in the corner and I was about to cry, and she said, "What's the matter?" And I said, "Well, I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning trying to paint the night sky, and everyone's laughing at them." And so she said, "It's got to be water off a duck's back. Whatever anyone says about your work, take no notice, take no notice." So I don't know why. I mean, last year I went back to that thing of trying to paint the night sky again all these years afterwards.
So what was that experience like from 14 to 77?
Well, it's all, I think everything should be an experiment, Otherwise things become mannered and dead. And so you address yourself to the tiniest piece of paper. It's a drawing, it's important. I won't let students use the word sketch, because that implies something casual that doesn't matter. you know. And so everything has to be discovered every time I work, every time I paint, every time I make a piece of sculpture. Everything has to be discovered for the first time.
If you have any interest in works from the contemporary fine art world, there's a good chance you do most of your viewing on a screen. But travel, it gives you the opportunity to see the actual original works. And when there is a chance to see a specific work of art you've long admired, no doubt it's worth the journey.